Yeah, this is me, age 89, being like, yeah, I'm starting to get it. Games just really, you guys are onto something here.
They can be pretty cool. Games can be pretty cool. Yeah.
Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is episode 18. I'm your host, Anita Sarkeesian, and I'm joined by my dysfunctional, superpowered friends, Carolyn Pettit.
Hey.
And Ebony Astor.
What?
You're here in the studio with us.
Yeah, let's walk back a minute. Dysfunctional superpower?
Yeah, it's all good. This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love.
Because we're talking about Jessica Jones.
No, I get it.
Okay.
I get it, Caro.
Right.
I just disagree with the framing of it.
Oh, right. Our
Don't
producer's
loop me
so
in
mad at us right now.
Don't loop me in with that. Oh, boy.
Hey, guess what?
What?
This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love, or alternatively, we're the Feminist Killjoys coming for your media, depending on your perspective. On today's show, we're going to talk about season 2 of Netflix's Jessica Jones and the mobile game Florence. We'll finish the show by each sharing a little something in What's Your Freak Out. And as always, exclusively for our fantastic drip backers, we'll be recording a bonus segment. This week, I'm going to force Ebony and Carolyn into a game of Would You Rather. Everything Feminist Frequency produces, including this very podcast, is listener, reader, and fan-supported. Thank you for helping us stay on the air and on the web. If you want access to special perks and exclusive backer awards, join our podcast community at d.rip/femfreak. I know Phil's going to hate everything that we just did, so I'm going to re-record all of it. I think it's great, and it adds character. So,
I love it.
Oh, did you? Okay, then I'm just going to keep going. Great. All right. Now, on with the show.
So, entertainment news this week. You two wrote a book. That's the big entertainment news story this week.
Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report,
It's
Time
all
Magazine,
over.
The Guardian, Le Monde,
The USA Today, the paper of people.
The paper of record. Even the old gray lady, the New York Times. Yeah, people are absolutely just beating a path to their laptop so they can pre-order what promises to be the book of the century.
Wow, Ebony, way to ruin our book.
What are you talking about? This book is amazing. We wrote a book, y'all. Y'all should order it.
Writing a book is shitty.
It basically almost killed us.
It's not fun to write a book. People don't really talk. Like, some people talk about. You know what I think was one of the hardest parts is the revisions. Nobody talks about the revisions.
Yeah, because revisions on their own are difficult because you want to produce the best thing that you can, right? But then also there's so much emotion bound up in it because you get the feedback from the editor and you're like, oh my God, I'm not shit. I'm the dumbest person ever. Why did they let us write a book? And so you have to overcome that before you can even make the edits. It was terrible.
I will say, though, I know we just talked. So we just finished writing the book and doing the revisions, so we're a little bit in the
we're a little raw.
Yeah. But I will say I'm pretty excited about the book. I think folks will really like it. It's actually based on our video series that we had made a couple years ago called Ordinary Women Daring to Defy History. The new book is called History versus Women, the stories that they don't want you to know. And it is
the defiant lives that they don't want you to know.
Did I screw it up?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I don't even know the name of my own book.
We'll get this straight before the book tour. I promise you.
But it's about stories of women who have been written out of history or that you might not know. And we try to frame it and contextualize it in some ways that, is different than some of the other ways you may have been.
Yeah, and importantly, we consider this to be part of what we hope is a tradition of reclaiming women's stories. Like, this book is not meant to be the end-all, be-all, the only book you read. We want this to encourage folks to go out and find more stories.
Yeah, for sure. And fun fact, we definitely talk shit about Margaret Thatcher, which is my favorite part of the book.
Yeah, definitely.
So anyways, we're going to probably be talking about this a bunch over the next several months. It comes out on October 2nd. Pre-orders are up now, so if you would like to pre-order, that is super helpful. The art is amazing. You won't regret it, I hope. We will put the link in the info box.
Yeah, and if you do regret it, we don't want to hear about it.
That's true, we don't.
No.
Whatever. Just look at the pretty pictures. We had nothing to do with those.
I know. Well, yeah, true.
All right, Carolyn.
Hey.
What is our entertainment news this week? Or is this actually our entertainment news?
That's
All right,
it.
cool.
We're done.
Great. Then let's...
Can we talk just for a second about the new Marvel Infinity War trailer that dropped and how people are going full tilt banana soup?
I didn't watch it.
I have not watched it, so fill us in. Well,
no, I will not. Let's save it for a time when everybody has watched it. But I will say that poster makes me laugh so hard because I swear to you, everybody on the planet Earth is on that poster. So, like straight up, you will find yourself on that poster.
I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast, but my relationship with the previous trailer for the film was... so not interested, so not interested, so not interested. Mark Ruffalo shows up and just kind of is peering into the horizon with like some like determined look in his eyes, and I'm like, I'm seeing this movie because I just love Mark Ruffalo so much.
Same.
I just think he's such a fantastic actor.
Same. All right, we're gonna circle back to this after my co-hosts have had time to watch the trailer.
All right.
Okay.
So then let's dive into other superhero things.
Speaking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which these shows are also technically part of.
Yeah, Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
Season 2. We watched it.
What
we did.
the fuck?
Thank you.
Okay. Oh my God.
So okay, season 1, I had some feelings about. I wrote an article. It's on feministfrequency.com. You can read it. There was a lot. I skimmed what I wrote about it this morning because I was like, what? I remember really hating Kilgrave and thinking that there was it was made me really uncomfortable that someone so charismatic, who was really liked, was so fucking awful, and the complications in that. But I also wrote, this focus in later episodes on absurd plot twists and contrived deaths over character development is unfortunate because the relationships between characters are the most engaging aspect of the show. I was like, oh my God, they did the same thing. They did absurd plot twists and contrived deaths. That is exactly what season 2 is as well.
True, although, I mean,
I don't know about the character.
To be fair, given source material and given the genre, that's somewhat to be expected.
Right? I know. Sure. It's hard to... I have a hard time with that because I'm like, the show could be so much more if it just wasn't so comic booky sometimes.
I think it could. I think if they were we're making a series for television and the strength of what we're doing is actually we have these interesting characters, they have interesting relationships, let's play that up, play down the the punching and kicking and the wild just plot stuff. I don't know. I think they would have a better show on their hands.
Yeah, I will go on record as saying the more banana soup the show is, the better I like it, just because it's so ludicrous. Okay. I embraced it. I did not like this season, so don't get me wrong, you know, but the reasons why I did not like it were not because it seemed as if a gaggle of chimpanzees hopped up on Nyquil were pounding away at a keyboard. That's not why I didn't like it. I tend to like that stuff. I didn't like it because straight up, okay, we'll get into it, but Jessica Jones, the character, is so terrible to people of color. From T to B, top to bottom, she is terrible. And I get that it's, supposed to be somewhat, transgressive that a female character is allowed to be just fully an anti-hero. But no, I was not here for it. She was awful, and I hated having to watch her. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Teddy is Andrew, and he killed his own wife.
And I feel like they make up for it by having people of color on the show, but it doesn't.
Why? So they can get killed?
Yeah, well, the 2 black cops were both killed.
In
Spoilers.
horrible ways.
Yeah. They're 2 black female cops, and they were both fucking killed.
No, listen, if you're a person of color on this show, you need to moonwalk the fuck out, because your character arc is not going to last long.
Well, I mean, I'm so frustrated because of the way that Jessica treats, Malcolm. I feel like Malcolm is, he's such a kind of devoted friend. He actually is kind of interested in her well-being. He's trying to be supportive and be there for her. And she just, I mean, obviously that's her whole kind of deal. Her whole arc is kind of about not trusting people and pushing people away and everything. I get that. But the way that things went down with the 2 of them, and where things wound up for Malcolm at the end of this season.
So
I mean, it's so disappointing. It's so
really
disappointing because I want her to have at least the one the relationships, I mean, obviously the relationships on this show are so completely fucked up. Like, so, I mean, you know, Trish.
Oh my God.
Trish is
banana soup?
Yeah.
Please, if someone doesn't FedEx her ass to the middle of nowhere, I'll be so disappointed.
Like, I mean, look, you know, being a little envious of your friends once in a while is human. Like, oh, my friends bought a really nice house. Oh, you know, I'm so happy for them. But also, like, you know, or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, like, to have this, like, deep-seated, like, jealousy of your friends so much that you're gonna fucking get this, you know, whack this.
Okay,
this
throw
nutty
everyone under the bus.
to
Hold on, though.
I know we're covering a lot of ground.
No, yeah, okay,
but
but I will say this though, and I can't believe I'm defending this show right now because I don't actually fucking like it. And my relationship to season 2 was like, this is boring, this is boring, this is boring. Oh wow, it actually got good. Holy shit, it got good. Oh my God, banana soup. Like it went bonkers. So there's like 3 episodes in the middle that I actually enjoyed, and I thought it was over, and then there was still 5 episodes left.
Surprise!
But I'll say this about Trish. Not about Trish. I'll say this about the show in general, because Trish became so fucking annoying and so excuse me, sorry, got so annoying and so, like, her motivations just got so I don't know, like, I was so frustrated with her and everything that they were doing with her. But even in season 1, like season 1 and season 2 of Jessica Jones is very much dealing with trauma and addiction. And like, I think that that's valuable and important. And I like that there are shows that deal with these issues. I think that the way, because it's a superhero show, because of the source material, it's not doing a nuanced enough job of dealing with these issues. Because Trish doing that stuff, like, if you extrapolated it, it would actually make sense to some degree. It's just the stuff is so fucking batshit.
Right, because
like,
it's,
she is having a meltdown because she, like, first of all, child stars and all of the shit that comes with that. Then she's having a meltdown because she really wants to be taken seriously and she's not. And this is like years of her doing this, like, Trish talk show or whatever. Her mom is deeply abusive. She's a drug addict.
She is a sexual assault survivor.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so, like, yeah, if she is as strong like her sister, she can erase all of the things that had happened to her, right? Or it would make up for all of it. And she'd be, you know, and she's using the excuse of, I can save people.
Right.
But really, she's trying to save herself.
Okay, that's actually really...
I fucking hated her and everything
that
about
really
it.
does put it in a new perspective for me.
I was really... I found Trish a very compelling character precisely because of that in season 1. And so I was excited to delve more deeply into that, you know. So there's all of that complication and nuance that, you know, you just expressed, Anita. But also there's also just the superficial, like you're looking around at these supers, these people who just exist in the world around you, right? And to feel as if I don't have that and I want that, you know, and the lengths to which someone will go to achieve that if they can. I actually kind of dug it. The thing that actually set me off was specifically about addiction. And I checked out with any empathy for Trish when she encouraged Malcolm to take a hit off whatever wonder drug she had, you know, picked up from Simpson. And just the way that went down, Malcolm has been so diligent and so deliberate about his recovery. And so the way she kind of looped him in to that really just, it bothered me so much.
The moment I think really turned against Trish was when Malcolm was like in the trunk and she whacked him with the pistol or whatever and like locked him in the trunk. I was like, okay, I'm done with you.
Yeah. Here's my thing with Malcolm is I feel like the show did a disservice to that character because I'm like, when I think of Malcolm, I think of annoying. And that's not fair, right? And I think that because the show positioned Jessica, like, you're on Jessica's side, like, and the show, I think the show is pretty sympathetic to her and especially when her mom and all of that stuff comes up, right? And you get all this, and that's when I liked the show. Is I was like, there's all this interesting backstory and this relationship and this tension, and I think that so every episode, Malcolm's like, let me help you, why don't you help me? I'm leaving, okay, blah 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 blah, and like you're like, part of me was like, just fucking give up, dude. Like, she's just not here for you. Like, give up on her. But you want to show, like, he is really just there to show that Jessica can't let people in. And, like, that is a disservice to all of who he is and his representation in this world and, like, who he can be. And that kind of bothered me because I think less of him when I don't want to because of the way he was framed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I always loved Malcolm's character, and I do agree that the show it kind of positions him as someone on the sidelines that it's safe for Jessica to dismiss in a way that I didn't agree with. And one of the things that I was struck by is the way that, Jessica continually, asserts that there are members of her family that she will do anything for. So, this is my mother. She's my family. I don't have a lot of family left. Or this is Trish. She's a member of my family. I don't have a lot of family left, right? But Malcolm is never part of that for her. And I was like, Malcolm has been there for you and has gone through the fucking fire for you, especially given what he experienced when he was under Kilgrave's control. And so for her to just like never hear what he's saying, to not give him anything, But
that's trauma, right? Like, I think that that's part of... Like, I think that that's intentional to show us just how damaged Jessica is, that she can't see that this person is here for her. The annoying part, though,
I get it, but what I'm
saying
saying is she does that, and it bothers me that given the treatment of people of color across the board in this show, that it's Malcolm, and so you get sort of everyone else is set dressing, and I understand exactly what you're saying, but it's part of an accumulation of of treatment of people of color, women of color especially, starting from Luke Cage. What was her name? Reva, in season 1 through the cops in this series. But yeah, it's essentially like there's this world of white women who are allowed to fuck up no matter what. And still be considered part of her family, but Malcolm doesn't get that.
Yeah, oh, totally. And also, another point of argument in your favor of this is that, like, you see Jessica starting to let in the guy, not the superpowered, but the superintendent. Yeah. And like you see that, and I actually really like. I thought I really liked that relationship.
Hated
I
it.
Liked that development. I thought it was. I don't think it was well done. I thought it was rushed. It didn't make any sense how quickly like he went from one degree to the other. But I liked who I liked who he represented to her. Also, fucking in paint was super awesome. I'm into it.
Hated it.
But I do what like he represents this guy who she's like feeling this like, oh, should I let him in? Should I not let him in? And she like occasionally does, which she should have done with Malcolm, but she's doing with this random dude she's fucking.
The relationship between Oscar and Jessica, to me, there are times when you're watching something and you were like, it could not be more clear that a white person wrote this. So when Oscar's like, yeah, I don't like having police to show up at my door. I don't like having to talk to the police, and the way she's like, oh, well, that's clearly because he's got a criminal history. How about it's because he's a person of color, like, and just doesn't want to have to deal with the fucking police.
Throughout the show, though, there's also just like this, I feel like there's this sense that like anyone who's like an ex-con is like bad in some way. Like Jessica will sometimes say like, well, they're an ex-con or whatever. Like,
as if she hasn't done horrible.
I know, right?
Yeah. Like, that doesn't mean that a person is like, you should just write them off completely.
Seriously.
What does that fucking mean?
And then, so she, I honestly did not see the appeal for him to be interested in her because she never gives anything, right? And all she does is take. So from the beginning, it's like, hey, I need you to come up with some fake passport and, fake identity documents and whatever. And I'm like, what are you actually offering this dude?
Yeah, well, he goes from like, fuck you, you're dangerous for me and my family to like, we drank some whiskey and now I like you.
Well, I mean, I get that she saved the kid's life. So, I mean, I think a gesture of kindness is not out of the question.
And
right.
And then, like...
So but the reason she saved the kid because the kid almost launched himself from the window. So, oh, thank you so much for saving my dumbass kid, And then that's it. I won't kick you out of the apartment, let's get busy.
Whatever. I think it's a cute power couple that he can make fucking forgery papers and she can, like, beat people up. I'm just saying, I think that's charming. fine. I'll take it. Also, I wish you could see Ebony's face right now.
It's just the hard disagree.
The one character whose plot lines and the actor's performance that I did enjoy. I hope consistently throughout the show was Jerry Hogarth and Carrie Ann Moss. Yeah, no, absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
we're in full disagreement. Her performance was fine. I just keep going. But
I guess for me, for one thing, that's cool. He's like amidst all the loudness and like Jessica's kind of always like just her one note kind of getting in people's faces way of dealing with things. You know, Jerry and Carrie Ann Moss as Jerry are so much. There's like an interiority to her performance and to that character where. She has, Jerry also has power. It's a very different kind of power. She has like institutional power, legal power or whatever, and she's willing to like abuse it to get what she wants. But it's always delivered in this kind of quiet way where she just knows that she can do whatever she wants.
Yes.
And and that like her dealing with the at least for the first few episodes where you learn that she has ALS and she's contemplating like what is she gonna do with this. I actually was really concerned about her and like how she was going to learning that you have a disease that's like terminal or life threatening. How do you process that and how does it change how you live day to day? And so I really liked that a lot.
I think that there was a lot of great performance there. I think that it took a while for the show to actually I just didn't give a shit about her for a while.
I wanted there to be more because it was such a B plot thing, and I'm like, we'll get 5 minutes of the Jerry storyline in this episode.
I think part of why I initially was like, ugh, which isn't totally true, but like is the character of Chang, the other PI, was so awful in every way. I didn't like him. I didn't like the character. I didn't like his motivations were stupid at every moment. And so him being woven up into her stuff, I kept being like, I kind of associated that feeling altogether.
Sure. Yeah.
On a very superficial level, I thought that actor was hot, so whatever. Anyway, this show could have been the Jerry Hogarth show, and I was really hoping that in her completely understandable quest to be cured of this disease, that she would wind up, drinking, I don't know, the secret formula, getting irradiated, whatever, and she would get powers, and then she would become like the big villain, And like I was so here for that. Carrie Ann Moss, basically, I want her to adopt me. We might be around the same age, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. But I love her.
Yeah.
And when she just sells every single emotion.
Exactly.
And so when she has that drug-fueled, kind of I'm gonna live this moment with those women, in her apartment, and then kicks them out, right? Or when she allows in blanking of the name of the nurse, right?
Inez,
right? And the guy who supposedly can heal people and then gets taken for everything.
Yeah.
How many spoiler warnings does Phil have to
we're-
put up?
yeah,
like
we're-
17. That the whole thing is spoilers, right? So put a good one there, Phil. But you can see it in her face, and you are allowed. The one thing I will say about this show is that sometimes the direction was so great, and there were quiet moments that in the hands of lesser directors would have moved too quickly. Right. But Carrie Ann Moss, you can see the move from anger to resignation to cold fury, and then just the determination to right that wrong,
which you'll
in the
notice
most
is
brutal
parallel.
way.
Like her doing that is very parallel to Trish. Like they were trying, it wasn't done as well, but they're trying to parallel both of those off the rails sort of.
Yeah, well, in the same way that Jessica's paralleled with her mother, they both have been, traumatized by men who have completely taken consent away from them, and taken their power away from them, and have abused the power that has sprung from that, whatever. That's another thing I hated about this season is that did either of you get the sense that there were ways in which we were encouraged somewhat to be empathetic or to sympathize with Jessica's mom's attempts to get back with that dude. And I'm like, no.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah, no, that dude is fucked up. No matter what he says,
I mean,
like
you're
what he did is
to the mother in
unforgivable.
general, too,
You know?
right? Like, you are kind of rooting for her.
You are,
and I was just like, I don't like, because in a way in which the show, I think, tries to be careful about, well, I would hope, no matter how charismatic Kilgrave is, we know that everything he's done is reprehensible, right? But I think there's a way in which they try and, soften the edges of what the Doctor has done to Jessica's mother. And I'm like, no, that is absolutely not okay. And I shouldn't want her to have a happy ending with this dude and go run away to the Maldives or wherever they wanted to go.
I mean, I do think the mom was interesting in that she could both be like a genuinely scary and threatening villain, and you could be sympathetic to her.
Yeah,
like
Janet McTeer, great work always.
Yeah, she was. So there were times where I thought, like, wow, she is terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She was great. One last thing that I want to bring up super quickly is that I appreciated that murder and death is framed as a big deal when it's at the hands of Jessica as the person that we're supposed to identify with. Yeah. It reminded me a lot of the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which was a show that I really liked, where there's like violence and death in the world, but when it was committed by like Sarah and John and like the humans of the world, that it was such a big deal that they had to go to therapy in the Sarah Connor Chronicles. And I like that, like, because there's almost a sense of, like, why are you harping on this so much? It's just a part of the way it is. And you're like, no, it's not a part of the way it is.
Right.
Like, this is a horrifying thing. And reminding us, even in a superhero show, the costs of violence.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't matter whether it was a worthy victim or not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Poor Jessica going from having a mom who, has killed people and she can only see her as a killer to having like a sister who has killed her mom and she can only see her as the mom's killer.
Jessica's just going to be fucked up forever.
Yeah, whatever. The true tragedy of Jessica Jones season 2 is Malcolm losing his beautiful hair. Moving on.
No. Oh my God. I was so mad. That was like the nail in the coffin bullshit. Best line was Nirvana isn't depressing.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we need to move on. So the next thing we wanted to talk about today is Florence, which is a mobile game that's available on iOS and Android. It was created by Ken Wong, who is the lead designer on the original Monument Valley, if y'all had seen that. Carolyn had freaked out about this on a previous episode, and we all gave it a shot.
I mean, so I love this game. This game, we're going to spoil it, so I hope you've played it. But if you haven't played it, it's not a game that has any kind of like challenging elements. It's a narrative game where you just kind of go through the motions, and it presents to you these interactions periodically that I think really put you in the it follows this young woman named Florence as she kind of has her first love and her first real relationship. And so, for instance, there are these interactions, one where like when they're moving in together and you sort of have to just go through decide like what stays on the shelf, what from the boyfriend gets put on the shelves, what gets put in storage. And it's just this little interaction about the two people's lives kind of becoming, shared in some way. And it was like, I was like actually having to stop and think like, do I put the superhero figurine or whatever like on the thing, like because I want him.
I kept being like, can I just squeeze them all in?
I know. I try to do that too. Yeah.
I do want to clarify that when Carolyn says it's a narrative game, it's not word based. It's very visual based.
Yes.
And the mechanics of the game are like small activities.
Yeah.
There's no like, it's not puzzles or difficult, but they're like little activities that you're doing. And so you're using the mechanics to further the story that is all told through visuals.
Yeah. It's a series of vignettes essentially.
Yeah.
And so the one that I think was like the most kind of like powerful for me and most like evocative of real life experience in some way is So early on, Florence and Krish, this musician that she's met, are going on dates, and they're having like conversations. And so there'll be like a speech bubble from Krish, no words in it, but you kind of just get a sense from the atmosphere and like that they're just making friendly conversation. And at first, so a Florence speech bubble will pop up, and you have to put like maybe 8 little jigsaw puzzle pieces together to form her speech bubble. Because she kind of has to like think about what she's saying, and she's maybe not super comfortable, and she hasn't been, who knows, she hasn't been on a lot of dates or whatever. And then over time, that 8 or whatever goes down to maybe to 4 or to 2, and then 1, and it kind of really, to me, communicates that sense of like, oh, here's someone I really click with. Like, here's someone where I don't feel like guarded, or I don't feel like I have to second guess myself or like think through everything before I say it. Like, it's just natural and it just flows. I loved that so much.
So in relation to that, the part that I thought was really evocative is when you have to do that same thing, but you're fighting.
Yes.
And it's like ragey red, and you have to like click your words together fast enough. Like, do you want to reply? Do you want to just scream at each other, or do you want to like take time or whatever? And I thought the visuals of the callback to how conversation happens was really smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the game does that sort of thing repeatedly, where it'll call back to, early on it'll like establish little things like that Florence like works with numbers, and it's kind of this for Florence it's like a mindless job, and you kind of click things on a spreadsheet or whatever. And then anyway, that pops up again later. But also, like, you play as Florence for a little while when she's really young, and you do these like art and craft projects, and then it's like not mentioned for a while, right? But then of course, much later in the game, the like 45-minute game, after Florence and Krish break up. Florence rediscovers her love of art and creating that she expressed as a young person, but had totally fallen by the wayside as she kind of got into this this rudimentary career. And the use of color throughout this game is just brilliant. Florence's life early on, it's all kind of gray. You get on the bus or the whatever, and you have to like flip through these kind of Instagram like images of probably assume Florence's friends, and they're all like colorful, and they're like they're having fun and everything. But Florence's life is so gray. And then of course she meets Krish, and her world starts becoming more and more infused with color. But in the end, what I love is that all these elements of who she's been kind of come together in a way to, you feel like she's more self-actualized than she's been before. And even the skills from like her job that she didn't like before, are useful for her now as she's an artist and she's like selling paintings and things. She can still use those skills to like, manage her profits and her bills and things like that.
I loved this game. So, quick note. People get on Anita for being a fake gamer, but Anita is not. I am the one on staff who doesn't know shit beans about games, right? So whenever Caro and Anita are like, oh, we're going to play this game and talk about it on the podcast, there's a moment of abject terror because I'm like, I'm going to be so bad at this, right? Because my conception of like the archetypal video game is so different from something like this, right? And so I'm always delighted when I actually take the time to play the games that y'all suggest. And this was just a wonder. I got so invested that I actually stopped it for a second because I was so afraid of what I knew was coming, which was that, the relationship, like many relationships, maybe was going to run its course, right? And the way the game allows you to live through it was so wonderfully done. I loved the way that like repetitive movements like brushing your teeth by yourself, then brushing your teeth next to someone. It was one of, I loved the way you had to shake the Polaroids to get them. There was never a moment where my attention wandered. I was so into this.
There's that whole sequence after they've separated where you just know that Florence is all she's doing is feeling Krish's absence. It's like these places that she used to be with him and he's not there and it's just her and there's like this vacancy there. Really effective. One thing also that I loved about this game is is that it surprised me in the end. There's at the end, near the end, there's an art show. Florence has a gallery show, and she, showing off her paintings and everything. And all these people are there to celebrate her work, and you kind of see her kind of go up to people and like talk to them about, just mingle with folks. And I honestly thought, I was pretty sure actually, at one of the paintings, some guy with his back to her.
Exactly, me too.
She's gonna walk up to him. It's gonna be Krish, and they're gonna like maybe the game is gonna leave you with the hint of some possibility of them getting back together, and it doesn't do that. He's not there.
Yeah,
and instead, it's like because of that relationship, even though it was painful, obviously in the end, like Florence has learned to value parts of herself that she wasn't valuing before. She wasn't like expressing. And so that relationship took her on a journey to become a more, like, as I said, self-actualized person. And so in the end, you just like, you have this image of her and like her cat and her apartment and her paintings being worked on and everything, and she's just like enjoying a cup of tea, and it's so colorful, and it's this moment of like, obviously I hope that in the future she finds love and finds whatever, but like we don't have to have her paired off with someone for us to feel like, she's like valuable and worthy in and of herself, and she's got this life that's much better now than it was before.
I really liked the way that they were able to seamlessly weave in their cultural backgrounds without it being over the top, like without it being like, these are people of color. But it was like, she talked to her mom, and it had, I don't know what the language was, but it had like...
she's Korean, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. But you do see the translation. That's like the one time where you see the translation. So you get a sense that the mom is kind of pestering Florence about, do you have a boyfriend yet? All that sort of stuff.
And then you see when you're sorting the items to move in and sorting the items to move out, you see that there are lots of like cultural food, like not just food, but like that was the one that really stuck out at me in terms of different kinds of like, foods related to each of their cultures, and you had to pick and choose which ones you wanted to keep and not keep, right? That sort of thing. And
you just wound up keeping the ketchup, didn't you?
No.
Okay.
But there were 2 bottles of the same thing, so I got rid of one of those. Just saying. I did keep the records in the record player.
Me too.
Yeah. But I thought that was like, I feel like one of the strengths of this game is that it had to be a game, right? And that's when I really feel like games are at their best, where you're like, this couldn't have been conveyed in another way, that it used the mechanics, it used the storytelling aspects.
I feel like
in a way that really you were a part of the story.
Yeah, this is me, age 89, being like, I'm starting to get it. Games just really, you guys are onto something here.
They can be pretty cool. Games can be pretty cool. Yeah.
So anyway, save your criticisms of people not even really knowing games. Direct those to me at Ebony Aster. I'm the person who doesn't know shit about games on staff.
I highly recommend checking this game out. It's available, I already said this, on iOS and Android. It just came out for Android, I think. And it's, it's like 30-40 minutes. Like, it's not a long game.
I've written an appreciation of the game on feministfrequency.com. We'll put the link in the podcast notes. The other thing, just really quickly, if somehow you've listened to this but you still haven't played it, like, pay attention to the use of color when you play this game, because it's so deliberate, and it's so, like, it communicates so much through the lack of color or the presence of color. And so
also the music is really lovely. Like, actually put headphones on and
Sorry to cut you off. No, that's great. Like, Krish is a musician, like the character in the game, and the music, there's like it's when they sort of first when Florence first sees Krish, she's like literally swept off her feet by his music, and you see that like,
so
and it's just so beautiful. So pay it. I mean, that I think is one of the real strengths of this game, is the skillful, deliberate use of color and music to really communicate so much about these feelings and this relationship.
All right. what's your freak out deal?
I can't go first this
You have
week.
to go first. I've already decided. I literally in my head just went, who's going to go first? Should I ask them? And then if we discuss it, it's going to be too meta. And then I was like,
just decided. I always have to go first.
No,
I
don't.
I sometimes go first.
Yo.
Readers,
This is what it's like having Ebony in the office all week.
Listen.
This is what happens when you write a book with someone.
Team Aster,
We
write
love
in
each
and
other, for
confirm
real.
that I always go first. Okay.
All right. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Carol, go.
Sure. So I have not had a lot of free time lately. So
I could go first. I never
No.
go first.
I mean, I have
All
a
right.
thing. I just want to preface that,
Carol's T-shirt is very cool today, folks. We'll take a picture of it and send
It's,
it.
From Sword and Sorcery.
the T-shirt I'm wearing is from Sword and Sorcery, which is another game that is on Feminist Frequency's recommended gaming list.
We made a video about
We
it,
did make a
actually.
video about this character, the Scythian, who is on my shirt. Yes, she's
And so
rad.
it's unsurprising that I didn't know it because I don't know anything about
You
games.
should play it, though, actually. I
Yeah.
think it's one that
Can
you
I
would
play it in the
enjoy.
office today?
Yeah.
No, we have so much work to do today.
Wow. Yes. Carolyn is about to have a meltdown.
Mom says no. Dad says yes.
We have so much work to do. Anyway, I'm like, oh
Okay,
my god.
you are real time witnessing Carolyn having
I
a
am-
meltdown.
I'm like,
Okay,
Yeah.
don't think about
Yeah.
it. Don't think about it. Come back to the present moment. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay.
Picture one of those flowers that just like that
the little-
pulses and
yes.
you breathe in and out with
Yes.
the movement of the flower.
We
I
should
love
definitely
that.
have you do a guided meditation for the bonus because you have a very calming voice.
Maybe for some in the future, yes,
Yeah.
we'll do that. But I've started reading the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin.
Yeah, me too.
Yay!
We're
Woo!
both reading it at the same time.
yes.
But if you missed it or you don't know, Anita recorded several interviews with folks when she was aboard the Joko cruise. The wonderful, brilliant N.K. Jemisin was one of those folks. It was the first interview we put out. So if you haven't listened to that, please do. It's a fascinating interview. N.K. Nora is so smart and so thoughtful about like her own work, but also about like they talk a lot about video games. Super interesting. But anyway, I'm like a little ways into the 5th season, and I'm really appreciating how it. So it's a world that's wholly unlike like a sort of typical fantasy world, or like a Tolkien or Dungeons and Dragons, for lack of better terms, kind of fantasy world, or a Game of Thrones fantasy world. Like it's a world that you have to, as a reader, it takes a little time to kind of adjust and figure out like what this world is and who the cultures and the people are that live in this world. But I really appreciate that it's not like unlike so many fantasy novels which have the problem of like the big like lore dump or exposition-y sections. Like I feel like in this book that the details of the world are just kind of woven in organically to the story. And so as a reader, you're kind of becoming acclimated or more familiar with the world as you are also kind of just getting situated in the story. And she does really interesting things with the writing, the language that she uses. I mean, it's, as I said, I'm still very early on, but boy, is it a kind of intriguing and refreshing fantasy novel so far. It's as I said, it's wholly unlike anything I've read before, and I'm deeply invested in the main character's sort of quest. Her son has basically just been murdered. Her daughter may be still alive, and she's kind of searching for them. But and she has all kinds of cool powers and stuff that I won't go into. But anyway, 5th season, the first book in like a trilogy, I think, by N.K. Jemisin. Check it out; it's super cool.
If you are reading it too, Anita, I suggest we talk about this on a future podcast.
Sure.
FemFreak Book Club, 5th season.
I'm actually reading 2 books at the same time.
Humble brag.
I know. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because I am on a panel with some folks and I wanted to know their
Humble
work, so I
brag.
kind of like I'm switching between them. So it might be a few weeks before we can get to
Yeah, no
shut
worries.
the fuck up, Ebony.
This is every day. Every day. How many times do I hear
I
this?
steal your jokes sometimes, and I said humble brag
What?
to somebody else once, and I was
That's
like,
not
"Oh,
my
they
joke,
don't."
though.
I know, but I got it from you.
Oh, okay. I'll take the credit.
Yeah, and so, but other people don't get it because I don't deliver it properly.
No, you know why they don't get it? Because it's such an old meme at this point.
I know it's true.
that-
It is old,
Wow.
but I still, yeah, whatever.
All honor to Ebony.
We will talk about Nora's world soon because I'm excited about it.
Awesome.
Cool, Ebony. What's your freak out?
My freak out, I probably have done this before, but I don't care because I love this show so much. Holby City, British medical drama. Y'all, this show is putting me through the ringer. So, as you know, I have a hard time experiencing real human emotion. I don't like it. I don't acknowledge it. I don't like it when I'm forced to feel things. But this show... So, people who watch this show, and there's like 2 people in my Twitter timeline who watch this show, so y'all know what I'm talking about here. The fact that Rick is still in prison... I can't. I know. Like, he's getting.
I was like, are you watching?
He's being, assaulted regularly.
Oh, jeez.
I can't deal with it. Henrik, my hospital father, the fact that he's not getting the care he needs after the horrific events of the shooting in the hospital. Jack and Fletch, are they going to get together? I am spending so much time thinking about this show. For a show that only comes on once a week, I'm spending 17 smooth hours a day worrying about characters on this show. So my freak out this week, once again, Holby City. I need an intervention. On to you, Anita.
All right. I have two small freakouts. I guess I'll just do both of them.
Are you truly freaking out if they're small?
Well, kinda. I just don't have as much to say about them as I could if I had prepared properly, because who has time when you're writing a fucking book? Don't look at you. I really wish you could see Ebony's face right now.
Y'all be so glad that we don't film this for you, because you would hate it.
No, they would love it. Anyways, okay. I would like to talk about, very briefly, how I fucking love the Black Panther soundtrack. Mm-hmm. And it's gotten kind of lukewarm reception.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And I've tried to get guests that we've had on the podcast to talk to me about the Black Panther soundtrack, and they're like, nah. Or like people are like, nah, I didn't even listen to it. And I'm like, the fuck is wrong with you people? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's the thing where it's like, maybe it's like it's made for a mainstream audience, which means white people. And so like maybe people who are like actually super into music and into hip hop don't think that it's too
like
mainstream,
yeah.
like right, a little too pop.
Polished, produced, whatever.
I read a couple reviews about it, and I think that what I'm getting is that there are some. So Kendrick Lamar is the main creator of the soundtrack, and there's a whole host of other creators and artists from around the world on it. And I think what I like about one of the criticisms of it is that there are some parts that are feel a lot more real, and then there are parts that are like the pop songs, right? So All the Stars with SZA is apparently a little too poppy for a lot of reviewers. I still think it's a great song, and when the movie ended and that song popped up, I was like, oh, I love it. I love everything that's happening right now. But one thing that I like about it is, one, like, I like it and I enjoy it, but also I feel like there are it does what the movie does well, in that it shows a range of like types of black music to some degree, right? Or within the realm of hip hop, right? Like you've got some beats that feel very African, right? That are mixed into this space, and then you've got like like West Coast kind of like it's got this mix that I feel like is what the movie did well, and I literally just said those exact words. Whatever. I really like it, so I recommend it. I think it's good.
In no world did I anticipate coming in to record the podcast this morning and hearing Anita talk about West Coast hip hop African beats. I was not prepared. I am literally having to keep myself from like falling out on the floor. So
I didn't do a very good job of it. So
moving on to freak out number 2.
All right. The other one, well, because I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about that, so I just prepared the other one. So every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, Carolyn and I Twitch stream, and we played a game last week called A Case of Distrust, and I really liked it, and I kind of just want to shout it out. It's by a developer named Ben Wander. It is a game that takes place in like 1924 San Francisco. It is a narrative mystery, and what I think the game does really well is, one, I think all of the pieces of it are done well, which is remarkable. The art is absolutely stunning. The sound design is really lovely, and so when I say it's an adventure game, it's really based, like, there are these almost still frames, and you're moving from like one environment to another environment, and you're meeting different people, and there's not a lot happening, but I think that they use very subtle animation, like just sort of tricks, right? Like little animation tricks, and the story is so compelling that you really do feel like you searched a room and that you like had conversations with these people. I haven't finished it yet, but I remember when we were streaming, I was like, Carolyn was like, all right, it's 6:30, it's time to wrap. And I was like, no, we have to keep playing it. I need to know what happens. Like, it's just the writing is really, really good. And I think that barring the ending being terrible, it also, the PI is a woman named
PC Malone.
Yeah.
Ooh, great name.
And yeah, anyways, there's a cat in it, which might be a draw for some people.
Yes.
So I recommend that as well.
Yeah. It's a super cool game.
So, with that, our show is wrapped. You can catch us back here every single Wednesday. Next week, we're going to recap some of our favorite moments from the Game Developers Conference, which is taking place all week next week in downtown San Francisco. We could not make this podcast happen without our generous backers on Drip. Drip is Kickstarter's brand new subscription-based crowdfunding platform. Help us keep bringing this podcast to you every single week by joining the FemFreak community. We've got some great rewards for you, so pitch in now at d.rip/FemFreak. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes because it really helps us spread the word about it. And, tell all of your friends who are trying to get super mutant abilities but shouldn't because being not super is super.
Quick question. If you could only choose between me and Caro to get superhero abilities, what would you choose?
Okay, save it for the bonus. Save it for the bonus.
All right.
I already know who I would choose.
Between you and Caro?
Yeah, not me. I can't be trusted.
I don't fucking want that shit. I don't.
Oh, right. So you can check out.
Anita doesn't get him. We're not letting Anita get him by default. Fuck that.
You can check out all of our work and our other podcasts at feministfrequency.com, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at FemFreak to stay up to date on all of the news that we provide about our stuff. And we want to hear from you, so hit us up on Twitter. Carolyn
Michelle.
Ebony.
Sneakers.
Just sneakers?
Yeah.
No at?
Yeah, just sneakers. That'll get you.
Just Google sneakers.
Yeah. Hit me up at Jack on Twitter. And eventually I'll get the message.
Or Ebony asked her, but, Jack works too. Mm-hmm. They're buddies. They're besties.
Yo, what if it turned out I was Jack?
Ebony, master of disguise.
Oh my God, Ebony.
You do have superpowers.
I know.
Wow, you're
super
like
villain.
Maybe you already have them, and you're just like deceiving us with these questions.
What a boring ass alternative alter ego would that be? Wow.
I am at Anita Sarkeesian. Our producer is Phil Circus, who also composed our theme music, who's probably screaming at us right now for going off the rails. We will see you all next week.
Later.
Bye.